Welcome to this edition of Backstage Pass with Lia Chang. I'm your host, Lia Chang, and I am so excited to be sitting with Bryan McCormick, who played my boyfriend in...
Rom-com gone wrong.
Yes.
I was like, that's a mouthful. Rom-com gone wrong.
It sounds so Chinese.
Right. Rom-com gone wrong. We can do that.
Anyway, he's in town for a hot minute, but is getting to work on a very special project and decided that we needed to chat about it.
Yeah.
Hi, Bryan.
Hi, Leah.
Great
to see you. Thanks for having me back.
Oh, I'm so thrilled. So, I understand that you are doing The Sound of Music in October.
I am playing Max Detweiler, and it is at Musical Theatre West in Long Beach, California. We open on October 20th.
So what I find very interesting about the shows you've been doing is you've been hitting a lot of really big musicals.
Yeah.
And I'd like to know what your experience has been compared to the Asian American centric casts and
Sure.
Playwrights that you've worked with.
I think for me, the biggest thing is a lot of this material, a lot of these shows are the things that I grew up watching or singing. And as an adoptee, I didn't necessarily have the lens issue about seeing myself represented because I very much identified with the white experience because I came from a white experience. But there is something about now that I identify more with my Asian identity, the importance of being able to be seen and part of those shows that traditionally did not have us. I don't know that there's been a Max who's been Asian before. I think in newer shows when we have representation, authentic, I think that's a different type of representation versus going back to these golden age shows like Hello Dolly, where I got to play Barnaby, or Sound of Music and get to play Max, where we've seen a lot of the same type of casting with other productions, but now we get to see things differently. You know, we've seen Marias who have been Asian, or Mother Superiors who have been black, or, just a lot more diversity to tell the story, because at the end of the day, the story is what's the connective tissue, not necessarily Maria being a white nun.
Well, one of the other interesting things about your background is you actually grew up in Minneapolis, and you worked with Mu Performing Arts and Theater Mu, so you've actually worked with a lot of the Asian American talent in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
You want to speak to that?
Yeah, I would love to. I love the Asian American talent in Minneapolis, and I think it's often a talent pool that's overlooked because Minnesota, along with a lot of the Midwest, is often referred to as the flyover country. And yes, to get to LA, to New York, you do fly over it, but we are real people there with real talents and things. But it was started by Rick Shiomi, a Canadian-Japanese man who... Japanese-Canadian. Thank you.
I know Rick very well.
And he and David Henry Wong are, great trailblazers in our industry, and basically they're friends, and David Henry Wong was like, I'm going to New York, and Rick was like, I'm going to Minnesota to start an Asian American theater company. When Rick came, there was no Asian American theater company.
That Rick built.
And that's why when I think about the effort and sometimes the work that is required by theaters to do the right thing, I go back and I'm like, this is a guy who was doing it way before we were talking about cool and in. So we all can do better. But yeah, he started it, including just he would drive, he'd help pick people up from jobs if you couldn't get to an audition. He trained so many artists who have grown to great heights, and I love any opportunity I have to go back and collaborate with them. I'm constantly keeping up with the work that they're doing.
Well, you starred in a really fabulous show. Let's talk about that one, because the pictures alone were unbelievable. I would love to have seen it in real life.
It was great. It was a play called The Korean Drama Addict's Guide to Losing Your Virginity by Mei Li Yang.
Pictures were unbelievable.
She is a Hmong American playwright, and it was the title that caught my attention to even audition. It's basically a play on like Pride and Prejudice, but set against Hmong and Korean cultures, and in Minnesota, and then all that brings with that being Asian in Minnesota. And May is a huge K-drama fan, and so she really brought the flavor and the authenticity to that from her hours and hours and hours of watching. But honestly, it was so pivotal to me in my career because it was the first time I was playing a romantic leading man. And
Romantic lead.
yeah, well, you know, again, once I put on the character, yes, the character can feel all
lots
that's
of comedy, but still, hello.
but yes, no, it was good, and you're right though. I think it's
Gave you
actually
a different level of confidence, didn't it?
It did, and I think that's the most important thing. I think everybody, no matter what you look like, who the character is, but we all deserve to feel that type of sexy power, yumminess. It's, you know, yeah, it's a good thing. So I'm very grateful that that role was even created, that I got to originate it. I would revisit that play in a heartbeat. And yeah, it kind of just, that was also kind of the start of my, we can do plays and musicals and go back and forth. So I feel very fortunate about that.
In addition to being an award-winning filmmaker, I know that you're also working on a documentary
Yes.
of going home and finding your roots.
Yes, that documentary has taken many journeys and iterations. It looks like it's coming back down to being a solo trip of my own, but I think that's also okay. I think adoption is very personal, and I think whenever you bring in other people's stories and wanting to be respectful about their journey, it can just, and my journey with my friends, it never got messy. It was just that it was hard. I have friend, Daniel May was one of them, who we were looking at going back, but he's, off doing shows all the time. I'm doing shows all the time. Our other friend, Carrie Lee Cartwright, she was our third member. She's busy all the time. So I think should it line up perfectly for the three of us, we would do it, the three of us, easily. But I think to just see it through, I need to just focus on my part of the story. So I've actually, as I've gotten older now, I'm starting to think a little bit more about how much I need to either find my parents or information for my own journey, but also how big of risks do I need to take in getting some of this information, because we're running out of time a little bit. And as you and some viewers might know, I may have a celebrity dad, and I have connections to that celebrity dad now, who I have reached out now and been like, would you be willing to maybe forward a letter? Even, so we'll see what happens. But it just meaning that, I'm getting older and I need some answers. So we'll see what happens. Make for a great movie.
Yes. So, what does it mean to you to be an Asian theater maker in this time?
I think being an Asian American theater maker in this time is a really big responsibility, and I don't take it lightly. And I celebrate it because, again, we all get to tell stories that we were not included in before. And also we have this rich diverseness of storytelling available. But I think in getting caught up in my own achievements and being able to go after my own career, we also have to continue to look back and lift up everybody who is on this journey with us. I look at people like you, your colleagues and contemporaries who have not only continued your own professional careers, but made sure that we also feel welcomed. I've always felt welcomed by you and your projects, and there are many people like you, Byork Lee, Nina Zoe Lam, Stephen Ang, the Knapp family made me feel very welcome getting here. And now, now that I have a little, I wouldn't call it clout, but I can introduce people, and that's my biggest thing that I love to do is you want to do this, let's bring you all together. And so I think the more we think collaboratively, the stronger we can be as an Asian American movement here.
Well, thank you for joining me for this edition of Backstage Pass with Lia Chang. Go see Bryan and Sound of Music play Max starting October 20th. Until next time.